Hi, my name is Bob Carney. I build medieval castles out of Lego block. I've been doing it for 30 years. The castle I brought to Brickworld this year is my 152nd. It's a ruin of a French castle in what was originally Brittany. It's now in the department of the Loire-Atlantique, and it's a castle that dates from 1125. It was added to and updated and improved many times over the years of the three main families that owned the castle. It is the only castle of any size that I have built in the last 30 years, which has an entrance to the main castle, which is for pedestrians only. Most of the castles have a large gate, usually with a drawbridge, which would allow in horses and carriages. But this castle was protected well enough from invaders to allow people only in one at a time.
Really? So this is like a very unique thing then, yeah?
It is, in my experience, yes.
Interesting. And so I see a photo of the castle over here, which I'm sure we'll link to at some point in the video description. But describe to me, what geography does the castle exist in that causes it to appear the way it does?
The land in which the castle sits is a marsh. The land, I think, was built up where the castle rests, and then the marsh cleaned out and dug out a bit to create a rather large irregular lake in which the castle rested. I think it probably was much like it is in my model back in the day. Currently, the marsh has partially dried up and it's completely overrun with weeds and vegetation, but I think this looks a lot like it might have looked 700 or 800 years ago.
Very cool, very cool. Now, one of the most impressive things about these builds is just the sheer number of parts, particularly gray bricks, I feel. Other than the gray bricks or sheer volume of pieces, what is the second, maybe? Is that the first, I guess, two-part question? Is that the number one challenge when building, just the sheer number of parts to deal with? And then after that, what is the second greatest challenge that you face when executing these large models?
Well, having done 152 castles, when I started, the problem, of course, was volume of Lego, because I didn't have very much.
Nip that one in the butt quick.
I did it as quickly as my wife would let me. Let's put it that way.
Very nice.
Now the challenge is finding castles that look like they'd be just a ball to build. And there are a lot of French castles which are quite irregular, with towers put seemingly helter-skelter. I'm sure there was a very good reason for it 800 or 900 years ago, but it's not evident to me at the moment. For instance, the gatehouse of this particular castle has two towers which are different sizes, and that's highly unusual. The residential range, which is now ruinous, was apparently modeled after the gorgeous nearby Château de Josselin. So I have tried to recreate a residence for the lords to live in, which is elegant and quite decorative. We have a bit of an impasse in the castle, as there is a four-way of knights and soldiers about to leave the castle, and they're about to meet up with several cattle and a young lad about to enter the drawbridge. We'll see how that comes out possibly tomorrow.
Oh dear, oh dear. And so you seem like a person that might be able to speak on this, but what country has the most boring castles in the world? Is there such a thing?
Ooh, should I actually say that?
We're potentially offending a massive group of people. We'll just hope that these castles are 1,000 years old, so anyone that could really take offense at this statement that you're getting ready to make is not in a position to care.
I will qualify it and say that considering the castles that I have seen and the castles that I have built, I would say the most boring probably came from Poland.
But boring, qualifier of boring is just a square castle that has round, straight corners, no irregularity. That's boring, right?
It is otherwise just kind of ugly.
So they're well built, but they're just kind of like they're not irregular. They're not fun to build with Lego.
You know, they did the job, but
they did the job
right at the time.
Interesting. I like that statement though. Have you taken any interesting fact-finding trips to Europe to do some investigation for your projects?
Sometimes we're lucky enough to do that. Sometimes we're not. In this case, my wife and I did visit the castle about 32 months ago. And in fact, one of the pictures that your partner probably took a picture of shows me in front of the ruinous gatehouse on our visit to the castle in September of 2014.
Awesome. Very cool. So I guess in conclusion, what do you have in plans for next year, and how long do you think this castle will stick around?
The castle's not going to stick around too long. I will probably be deconstructing it pretty soon after we get back to central Illinois a couple of days from now. The next project has not been decided. My wife does get a vote. We did not get nominated again this year. I've had 3 nominations in 8 years, which, considering the incredible quality of Lego that's at this enterprise, is I think a pretty good track record. But we may go back to looking for shock and awe with next year, like we did with Neuschwanstein a couple of years ago.
Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Wonderful builds as always.
Thank you again.